All right, guys. So my name is Moises Santos. Welcome to the Fasting for Your Health Masterclass. I'm super excited to do this, not only because I'm very passionate about fasting. I'm sure you guys see me on my Instagram stories and all that stuff. But we actually have Aman in the house, and I've never done a masterclass or any content really other than the podcast we did a couple of weeks ago. Super excited to have him on board. He was a coach that started VidaProject with Rancis, and now he's back and he's on board, and he's just an abundance of information, and super excited to have him
on. I'm also very excited, Moses, to do this masterclass with you, especially on a topic that you and I are very passionate about, right? We apply this every single day to our lives, so I'm really excited to get this going.
All right, guys. So what's going to be the most important thing for you to do today is just learn. So just get a notebook out. I really recommend, if you have a notebook, to get it out, write down any notes. And also, we're gonna have a Q&A for about 10 to 15 minutes at the end of the masterclass. So if you have any questions, write them down in the chat, put them in your notebook, because we're gonna give you the opportunity to actually come on and ask us questions, even if they're personal about nutrition and any of that stuff, you wanna write it down. Also, you're gonna receive access to our online community. On this community, you're gonna have access to our coaches, like Aman, Rancis, Evelyn, Beverly, Javi, all of our coaches that specialize in different areas, like fitness, mindset, relationships, your career development. You can access all of that through the VidaProject community. Also, you're gonna get a bunch of content that you will find nowhere else, no Instagram, no YouTube, only accessible on VidaProject, and that is completely free. So Beverly's gonna send out the link so that you guys can join our community and just get on board and talk to a lot of our coaches and the members who are going through transformations just like yourself. So let's get started.
All right, guys, so what is that one most powerful thing that you can do for your mind and body, and it doesn't cost you a single cent? Fasting.
So today you're gonna receive some powerful information on fasting. It's so impactful, and how it's a vital tool in being able to improve your health. It's something that I've applied into my lifestyle, and a lot of the members and coaches here at VidaProject did as well.
So what we want to do is, even though there's a lot of benefits to fasting, we're only going to focus on 3 today. So the first one going to be ketosis or keto, second, autophagy, and the third is the spiritual mindset that you can get when you do either a short or a prolonged fast.
So before we get into those 3 components of fasting that we're going to be talking about today, let's give them a little bit of information on ourselves, because honestly, Aman, why should you listen to us? Like, who are we? Okay, so we're going to tell you a little bit of how we got into fasting and how we started to learn about nutrition, and then we'll go into those points. So for myself, I was started as a client here at VidaProject, and actually Aman was one of my coaches. He was, I believe, in his 20s at that time, right?
Yeah.
So the reason that I joined was because I was really nervous about my health. I didn't just go to them for the fitness aspect, but they really knew a lot about nutrition at that time because they were both certified in precision nutrition. And the reason that I was so nervous about my health was because my family, I have diabetes, my family has diabetes, high blood pressure, my grandparents had a lot of those issues. And for the first time, my dad, I saw him cry, and he was actually in the hospital with kidney stones because of his high blood pressure medication. Now, for me, that was kind of a little bit of a trauma, because I was like, wow, my dad, I saw somebody that was healthy, took care of himself, but because he had high blood pressure, he was in that position. So that's when I seeked out Rancis to learn more about nutrition and joined VidaProject as a client. After 4 or 5 years, I decided to leave my career as a teacher and jump on as a partner on VidaProject. And in that process, I learned more about nutrition. I learned more about my health. I learned more about fitness. And with the help of Rancis and Evelyn, who is actually has a degree in nutritional science, we created this program called Bite by Bite. It was a 90-day nutritional program that actually we applied to our own health, my Rancis, and actually all the team members here at VidaProject. We actually went through the course itself. I lost about 20 to 25 pounds in that process. And in there, I learned a lot about nutrition. And from there, that's a component that we actually put in the nutrition program And I started to apply those practices to my life. And that's how I started to learn about fasting. And over here at VidaProject, we're constantly learning about new nutritional information, because as you know, with technology, the information is changing so much. So we're constantly updating ourselves, and that's where we're at right now.
So my story is a little bit different. My story is from the perspective of the coach, right? So as Moses is talking about information, right? There's a lot of information out there. It's very easy to get lost in all that. So the idea is to take whatever information that actually makes sense. And I feel like that's what fasting did for myself when I started first implementing it, is to understand that aspect, that take the information that makes sense and it holds true, and then apply it, right? So as a coach, when I was doing all this research, I wanted to make sure that the information I was getting out to the clients was something that they can apply and see results in every single aspect of their life. My curiosity for fasting actually first sparked with my cousin. That was the first time. I used to have conversation with him all the time. His name's Kumar. So me and him would have conversation, but he's not more of a science person. He's more of like a logic person. Like, hey, the logic is that we shouldn't be eating 3 meals a day, right? So where does that paradox even begin? Why are you eating 3 meals? And again, that was from the misinformation that comes with the fitness industry, you know, that you're supposed to eat X amount of carbs and all that. So he was more logic based, but for me, I was like, listen, I need some science behind this. So I'm gonna have to sit and kind of do my personal research and see how I can apply this and what are the benefits that I'm getting out of it, right? So long story short, he got me to do my first 24-hour fast. And that was kind of like a huge eye-opening for me, because I was someone who was eating 3-4 meals a day, you know, snacks in between. And doing that first 24-hour fast really showed me how my emotions and some of the, I guess, like the levels of blood sugar that I went throughout the day and energy levels that I went throughout the day, how they were being affected by food. And I was just kind of using that as an outlet to quote unquote sustain energy. And that was really eye-opening for me right away. So that first fast that I did for 24 hours and I had complete energy to work out and everything was huge.
Yeah, so I mean, you know, as most of you might already know, and if you follow us on Instagram and stuff like that, Aman and I had recently done a 7-day fast. And it's not like you go into a 7-day fast if you've never fasted before. It was always working up, always arming ourselves with information. Even for the preparation to a 7-day fast, we constantly did research. So it's something that is particular to your body. It's something that you can apply to your life, and not just on the science, the things that we're going to talk about it today, but like Aman said, the emotional attachment. And we're going to speak a lot about that as well, because that's very important to take in. All right, so let's get started with the first topic. We're going to go into ketosis.
So ketosis, guys, is in simple terms, it's when your body has not had glucose or anything for about, let's say, 10 to 12 hours. It starts working on depleting all the glucose in your body and switching to fat as its primary fuel source.
Yeah, so fat, we want to be able to convert energy, the use of energy to fat. So we have several forms of using energy in our body. One of them is obviously glucose, right? Those are your sugars. And there's different types of glucose. We have complex carbohydrates, simple carbohydrates, and we have refined sugars. Refined sugars are obviously the ones that are the worst for you. We're talking about candy, soda, all of that stuff. We want to try to stay away from that. But why is fat more powerful? Well, if we ever take a look at a fat molecule versus a glucose molecule, the unit, the amount of energy that is inside a fat molecule is actually higher. It's 9 calories per unit versus the glucose, which is actually 4 calories per unit. So what does that mean? That means for 1 unit, you get more energy in that actual fat cell. And it's actually more efficient. It's what our body is actually designed to use.
So with glucose, you might feel, a spike of energy right away. And I think that's where that misconception comes in, like, oh, I need glucose for energy. And whereas with fat, it's more of a sustained energy. And we get so lost in this idea because we've been doing it for so long that we just need consistent spikes of energy throughout the day. We never actually give our body that chance to get into using fat as its primary fuel source. So I don't know if many of you guys know this, which is about the newborns, right? Every single newborn is generally in a ketosis state. It's very, very hard to get them out of that state. Like us as adults, we can eat a high carbohydrate meal. And like I said before, it might take us 10 to 12 hours to start depleting all the glucose. With newborns, it's literally within like 30 to 45 minutes. You give them carbs, their body instantly starts breaking it down and saying, no, my preferred state is to be in a fat burning state and not a high glucose state.
And that's a great point, because you ever hear a lot of our parents, right? Oh, you're still skinny because you haven't gotten older. To me, that's complete BS, right? It's not that we're getting older that we're not able to process, glucose the same way. And that's the reason that we're getting fat. It's that we now have created the habit of using glucose as the main energy source. And when you have an abundance of glucose in the body, your body is going to convert that energy into stored energy. And what is that stored energy? It's fat. That's why we become overweight. That's why we start to feel a decrease in our energy levels, our the way that we feel emotionally. That all plays a role, because we are intended to use fat as a fuel source. We're not designed to eat so much food.
And one thing that I do want to clear up, which I think is very important, I don't know if this is a coincidence or it's something that just happened, like, it was like planned or something, but the two definitions of the fat paradox, right? So one we're telling you guys that when you're eating too much glucose, you're storing away the fat, and on the other side, we're telling you that sometimes we'll say like fats are good for you. Right. So in relation to fasting, the only thing that you need to know when it comes to fat is it doesn't matter if it's good fat or bad fat, right? When your glucose is completely depleted, your body is going to tap into that store of fat. So don't even overthink it as, I'm supposed to be eating saturated, polyunsaturated, all that stuff. So just only think when you're not eating anything, your body's going to tap into whatever fat source that it has.
Yeah, one rule of thumb that I tell clients here is, if you're not eating fat, then you're probably going to get fat, right? So let's talk a little bit about how the body actually processes glucose and how we get into ketosis. So when we start to eat glucose, right, the body starts to break that food down, and it takes that sugar based on your workload, depending if you're working out, how much you're actually thinking, because the brain actually uses anywhere from 20 to 30% of the energy that you actually consume, right? The body is actually going to store that glucose into fat when it no longer has to use it. So where does the body store this glucose? The body actually stores this glucose first in the muscle tissue. So in your actual muscle tissue, there is glucose. Then the second place that it actually stores glucose is in the liver. That's your reserve. When those two areas or those two components are full or have enough glucose to sustain your workload, then your body is now going to use insulin to convert that sugar into fat. Now, when you have too much sugar, right, you're using insulin all the time. And what happens is your pancreas is what converts what is actually secretes that insulin to turn that sugar into fat. What does that mean? That means if you're consuming too much sugar, you're making the pancreas work too much, which then leads to diseases like diabetes, right? Or pancreas failure. That's what diabetes is pancreas failure. And then we start to gain weight and all that stuff. So what we want to do when we go into ketosis is we're actually reversing that process. We first decrease the amount of sugars that are stored inside the muscle tissue, and then we go into the liver and we take out the sugar away from the liver. And then what actually happens is we start to go into ketosis. And in ketosis, we have a fat molecule. And that fat molecule is a triglyceride, meaning there's several types of fats in there. Those three types of fats are held by a structure, almost like a skeleton, like a spine to it. That structure is glucose. So what happens in ketosis? The body takes that fat molecule, takes the sugar structure, and separates the three different types of fats. Those three different types of fats now get transformed and turned into ketones. Those ketones power the body. And then that extra glucose gets stored in the liver again for backup, just in case we need something.
And one thing with the depletion of glucose, this is why a lot of people have trouble fasting when they skip a meal, right? Because as the glucose is leaving your body through the liver, your muscles, and everywhere it's stored, you start feeling that low energy because technically that's sugar, right? That's your that's like your instant source of energy that's leaving. I remember when you were telling me about your 5-day fast, right? You said so before Moises, he got into his 5-day fast. He had pizza.
Yeah, I was eating like complete just crap. I was eating everything because we were in the quarantine, right?
Yeah.
So I was in by myself, and I started to, eat too much sugar. So I knew that fasting was one of the ways that I can start to detach myself from that.
So what he did was he jumped into a 5-day fast, and again, from your experience, you were saying it was not easy.
No.
Because now he has more glucose that needs to leave his body, right? And that's where that mental challenge comes in. Is we're consistently feeding, our pancreas is consistently working, our liver is consistently working to get rid of glucose. Heck, even now, right now, I know Moises, he's up almost 10 or 14 hours or so into a fast. If he took a small Jolly Rancher, his body, the way it would process it, okay, I have glucose inside me right now. I need to try to get rid of it because again, the preferred state for your body to function is in ketosis. So
I like to give this analogy to clients sometimes, is if we think about glucose and fat, we're gonna think, if you guys ever watch Fast and Furious, your glucose is that little NOS button, right? That's what you wanna think about using it as. It's your little NOS button. Your fat is your main fuel source. So are we saying that glucose doesn't have a place in nutrition? Absolutely not. What we're saying is that glucose has a specific timing to when it can be used. Right now, what we have is an abundance of glucose in the stores. We have anything from these processed foods. If you look at processed foods in the supermarket, they all have sugar inside of it. And they rename the actual name for sugar and tell you that it's not sugar. So we need to be careful with the amount of sugar that we actually intake. So I like to give that analogy. It's like your fat is your main fuel source, right? And your glucose is your NOS. You do need some glucose to reproduce some of the healthier cells in the body. The type of glucose that we want to intake is actually the more important thing that we want to discuss at that point.
And you don't want to be revving on NOS 24/7.
No, exactly. Not. Like if you did that to a car, you would destroy your car all the time. So think of your body like that. Like it functions almost that way. So now, what are the benefits to getting into ketosis? Some of the benefits are better energy, right? Just energy right off the bat.
Yeah, better energy, and also what we're going to get into next is the whole cleansing process, right? In order to truly cleanse, you need to be in a ketosis space when you're fasting. So yeah, you definitely want to hit that point.
What we get into from there, what fasting also does, because ketosis takes a little bit of a while to get into because you got to get rid of the glucose. What fasting actually triggers, right, is that ketosis state. It decreases the amount of time that it will take us to generally get into ketosis. We can get into ketosis by eating foods that are lower on the glycemic index, meaning these foods don't have high amounts of sugars. We're talking about vegetables. We're talking about, if you go up the glycemic index, we're talking about root vegetables have more sugar than your spinach, right? So if we think about it in that way, we want to lower the glycemic index. But what you actually do in a fast is that you start the process of nutrient deprivation, meaning that your body is not getting any nutrients. And that triggers this concept called autophagy.
And that's the next thing we want to get into is from ketosis, we're going to get into autophagy and what is it and what are the benefits of getting into it. Now, autophagy isn't triggered like ketosis. So ketosis, again, generally be like 12, 14 hours, depending on where your blood sugar levels are. With autophagy, it takes a little bit longer. I think it's almost 24 hours or so.
So depending on your body, anywhere from 24 to 72 hours. This is where prolonged fasting comes into play. And this varies with person to person. Because think about it. A lot of us are over 30 years old, meaning that we've built these habits and we've trained our nervous system to be able to use energy differently. So if we've been eating a bunch of sugars for 30 years, your body isn't automatically going to go right into ketosis, it's going to fight real hard to keep that state. Why? Because the nervous system is only designed to make us survive. It does not care about how you look. It does not care about if you're overweight, if you got a boyfriend or girlfriend, if you got a bad career, good career. It doesn't care about any of that. All it cares about is your survival. And when you decide to change something in your nutrition, in your life, your new nervous system is going to fight you hard on it. So that's why it takes a little bit longer and the times vary from person to person.
So the way we want you guys to look at autophagy is basically spring cleaning for your body, right? It's your body's process of taking old cells and basically replacing them with new cells.
Yeah, so what was the word auto means?
Auto means self, and phagy means to eat. So yes. Autophagy is to self-eat.
So basically what you're doing in a fasting is you're eating yourself. But your nervous system is a lot smarter than that. Your nervous system is actually going to trigger autophagy to get rid of all the bad stuff that is in your cell. So autophagy also occurs when we get sick. So it gets rid of pathogen, viruses, bacteria that are causing harm to your body, because those things always exist within the body. So why is autophagy so good, even though it sounds like a horror movie? Well, the thing is that autophagy actually makes the body more efficient. Let's think about it like this. You are made of trillions of cells, different types of cells. And in those cells, each cell has what's called a mitochondria. I think if you guys go back to your high school days, you'll remember what a mitochondria is. It's kind of like the battery for that cell. Now, depending how you're eating, right, it feeds energy into that mitochondria. Now, that mitochondria, depending on the source of food, if it's too much glucose, it's not going to work as efficiently. So now you have a bunch of cells with bad functioning mitochondria. What autophagy does, it takes a look at all these cells and it says, hey, all the cells with poor functioning mitochondria, we're going to get rid of, okay? And then it takes those cells, it gets rid of those cells, and what do cells do? Naturally, they duplicate. So now what you're actually doing is you're duplicating the cells with better functioning mitochondria, which means you're going to get a better functioning you. And that's basically, in its like simplest form, is what autophagy is.
Yes, definitely. Another thing with in relation to the benefit of autophagy is the lengthening of telomeres. So your DNA, if you look at the strand of your DNA, right, at the ends they have these things known as telomeres. And I think it's the scientist David Sinclair, he talks about it, where they've actually zoomed in and they take the blood samples of people that have done prolonged fasting, 72 hours. And what they realize is actually the cells, they start fixing, so to speak, the end telomeres that slowly tend to dissipate as you get older. So those telomeres at the end of your DNA, as you're aging, they'll start to dissipate, get smaller and smaller. But when you're fasting in a fasted state, they tend to stay.
You slow down that process. So every time that your cell duplicates, there's the telomeres that Aman is talking about shortens, right? Now, depending on your nutrition, right, the speed at which that telomere shortens is very important, because that tells us the length of your life, right? So if we decrease the time and the speed in which our telomere actually kind of disintegrates, essentially, right, we actually lengthen the amount of time that we're alive. So fasting has showed to actually slow down the shortening of those telomeres. And that's why, and that happens through the process of autophagy. Because again, you want a better working cell. You want a more efficient cell. Your body is going to duplicate the more efficient versions for yourself, because again, what does the nervous system want to do? It wants to make sure that you survive.
And that's another thing when it comes to aging, right? So that's what we're talking about really. Is if you're slowing down those telomeres, you're essentially slowing down your aging process. Anytime you consume anything you put in your body, it has to start a process, right? Something has to start working. Something is now using energy. But when you have that energy and you're using it more efficiently, then your body can use it for repair. That's probably the best way to put it.
The other thing it starts to do, it actually gives you your body a moment of rest.
Yeah.
Right. So your digestive tract, your nervous system, all of this has to actually do a lot of work in order for you to digest those foods, in order to process the forms of energy that we are inputting into our body. And this is super important because, again, another analogy, if we wanted to do construction on a street, right, and we had cars going through the road, to be able to build a new street or repair that street would be very difficult if there was traffic going through it. But when we actually stop traffic, we can actually do all the work that needs to be done on that road. And that's what actually happens when we go into autophagy. When we go into fasting, we're giving our body a break.
Yep.
And there's, a bunch of results that come from that.
Yeah, and some of the ones being that are, that we've noticed, you and I've noticed ourselves, is better skin, better hair, and just overall, it's just that energy level is so much better.
Yeah,
once we start refeeding after long.
Yeah, you're gonna get better hair, better skin, better bowel movements. Guys, when you go into fasting, if you have trouble going to the bathroom, fasting may be one of the things that will help you kind of repair that process. Okay, so there, in terms of autophagy, there are going to be a whole lot of benefits, but it doesn't actually happen in like you do one fast and now, oh my God, I'm going to get better hair and better skin. It's a process. It takes time. It's actually a lifestyle. It's something that we implement into our life every day. We go either intermittent fasting or we do prolonged fast. Like, for example, I know Rancis does it. I know Aman does it myself. We do a 72-hour fast in the beginning of every month. Why? Because we just spent a month eating, right? We want to give our body a break. We want to give our body a chance to repair so that we can get better functioning hair, skin, energy, whatever it is, we're going to repair ourselves.
Yep. All right, you want to go to
Yeah, let's move on to the next one. So let's move on to mindset.
Okay. So mindset, guys. Now this is something you feel. It's not, it's nothing that is no scientific base. Everyone has their own journey when it comes to the spiritual mindset, when it comes to fasting. For myself, it was just a realization that I used food itself controlled my emotions. So that was kind of my spiritual understanding when it came to fasting, through fasting.
So one of the things, I'm sorry, Aman, I didn't know if you wanted to continue on that way, but I want to really get them to understand what we're designed to do. Because the emotional aspect is something that we deal with every day, right? Emotions make us feel alive as human beings, right? But let's go back, let's go to the science of it. Let's go, what are we designed to do? So let's think about the human being. We are designed to fast. We are not designed to eat.
Yeah, it's funny that you're saying we're going to the science aspect, but I feel like it's both. It's the logic behind it, and it's the science behind it. So with the bite by bite, I remember, one of the things is the different seasons, right? So if certain food was not available for humans, Homo sapiens, we have one of either you're gonna die because you're not gonna eat that thing, or you need to eat that thing to survive. So that's one other way of looking at it. It's the logic behind it, right? And where does this 3 meal a day paradox even come from? There's a book by Abigail Carroll. I think it's called The Square, the invention of the American meal, something like that. And what she talks about in that book is the idea of 3 meals actually came when the European settlers came to America, and then they realized that the native people here were only eating based on how they felt, and they kind of took that as like uncivilized or savage, right? And they implemented that eating based on times.
Yeah, so that's a great point, because we are actually, guys, we're no different than animals on this planet. We're just a little bit smarter. That's why we've been able to do everything that we do. But we as human beings, if we think of ourselves as a species, as an animal, we have a specific diet. And that diet is in accordance to the relation of our season and the environment that we live in. So if we think about we're from North New Jersey, we're in the East, so we experience winter. If none of this existed, right, we would have to really find our food. We would have to hunt. The ground is frozen. That means we wouldn't be able to get root vegetables. There would be no fruits available, right? There would animals go into hibernation. So we would probably go into a fast. We would have to be forced to fast. There's no abundance of sugar. Sugar is not naturally available in this planet, on this planet. It's hard to get. You have to work really hard to get sugar. And right now, what we have is like what Rancis calls is a mismatched disease, right? We have an abundance of sugar. of everything, yeah, that wouldn't be naturally available to us if none of this stuff existed. So we are designed to eat according to the seasons, and fasting is technically a season. We would have to experience, depending on the environment that we lived in, we would experience a fast, a prolonged fast as well.
You want to kind of give them the idea on religion real quick?
And
how religions also fast.
Yeah.
Incorporate fasting.
Fasting is nothing new.
Yeah.
Fasting is not, it's something that's been, it has existed for thousands and thousands of years. Any religion, where you talk about Christianity, Muslims, Jewish, if you go into Buddhism, right, Hinduism, they all practice fasting because they know the spiritual aspect that it comes with. It's the idea of detaching.
Yeah.
And this goes hand in hand with the emotions that Aman were talking about. When we start to detach ourselves from the foods that make us feel good, that comfort us, that shrink our awareness to our environment, to our relationships, when we start to really take away foods from there, we start to build that awareness with the rest of our life.
Yeah, I agree with you. And you know, there's a level of discomfort when it comes to fasting, and which we invite you to go into. It's discomfort is nothing bad, right? So we wouldn't get here if our ancestors were comfortable all the time, right? We wouldn't have this massive sized brain that usually consumes 20-25% of energy. So discomfort is a good thing. It really teaches you something. Myself and Moises, when we did our 7-day fast, I'm sure you and I both experienced a lot of discomfort.
Yeah.
For me, around the 4th day it kicked in, it was pretty bad. But you know, we grew from that, and I feel like we should be putting ourselves in these states of discomfort to grow. It's necessary for growth.
I mean, if you know anything about VidaProject, we preach discomfort. We like to call it the salad of the fitness industry, because when you start to eat enough salads, it's not always fun, but you know, you're gonna gain something from it. And I think it's very important to put yourself in that discomfort, because if you think about working out, right, we are literally making a conscious decision on deciding to go through an hour of discomfort, because we know that in that hour, we're going to feel great after. We're going to feel accomplished. We're going to feel better. We know that we're growing from it. We know that we're getting stronger from it. Fasting is the same approach. It's no different. It's literally just stop eating, go through a little bit of discomfort, and now you'll reset your palate. You'll be able to detach from the foods emotionally. You'll be able to build awareness with your emotions in that time. You'll be able to understand your mindset to really see how you react in a natural form when you don't get food, how cranky you become, how relaxed you become. You're going to experience a bunch of emotions that you'll just have to build awareness with in that moment, and that develops the mindset.
So you want to kind of
let's summarize now.
All right, guys. So let's summarize real quick what we learned today in terms of keto, autophagy, and the spirituality aspect. Keto, what you need to know about it is that fat is a much better fuel source for you at the end of the day than is sugar. And your body is going to always consistently try to get rid of any excess glucose that it has. It just needs that time. It just needs that break to do so. And again, it usually, depending on what you're eating and how your lifestyle is, it can take anywhere from 18 to 24 hours for your body to go through that process.
Okay, so now the next point that we want to summarize is autophagy. So autophagy is basically, in its simplest form, is the spring cleaning of the cell. When we actually trigger autophagy, what we're doing is making more efficient cells. When we make more efficient cells, we make a better functioning mitochondria, which leads to better energy, better looking cells, better cells, because even our hair is cell. And then also at that same time, what we're doing is decreasing the amount of time that the telomere actually gets shortened. We're slowing down that process, and that's the aging process, which means we're going to get a longer life.
No, officially.
And then the spiritual aspect.
The spiritual aspect, I mean, we can have much more points about this, but like we said before, always put yourself in a discomfort space. See how, when you're fasting, what are the emotions that you're going through? You know, as you skip 1 meal, 2 meal, if you decide to do a prolonged fast, see everything that you're feeling at that time, and what are some of your triggers, and what are the things around you that make you hungry. and even the days, the time of the day, kind of triggers hunger as well. So, and also understand one thing, guys, we're designed to do this. We're designed to fast as humans. So there is no, I love when when we say like superfoods, right? Getting a root from South America somewhere. Well, yeah, that's one thing, it might cleanse you, whatever, but there is no better cleanse than just giving your body the break that it needs.
Yeah, the detachment from food. It's, again, we're not designed to eat a large amount of food. So that's a process of detachment. All right, guys, so we're going to go into the Q&A portion of this masterclass. But before I want to get into that, I want to really, really make this point. I want to give a disclosure that fasting is not for everyone. It's not something that you should just jump into. You really have to learn about your body. You really have to learn about your emotional attachment to food, especially if you suffer from diabetes, high blood pressure, if you're pregnant, if you're underweight, then fasting may not be for you, and you should definitely consult with your doctor, okay? But that does not mean that you don't take action at all. It means that you start learning about how to start to change your nutritional lifestyle. We're not talking about a diet, we're talking about a lifestyle that is gonna last for the rest of your life. So what we have here at VidaProject is we have the Bite by Bite program. It's a 90-day program. It goes over the course of 12 weeks. And in that week, every day you get a video. And in that video, you're getting nutritional information. You're getting behavioral psychology, which means your understanding of your habits and your mindset when it comes to food, your emotional relationship with food. And you're going to get the community and the coaches that are involved in that program. And that's going to lead you from a state to where you eat right now, which may be with an abundance of sugar. And it takes you through all the seasons so that you can finally get to ketosis, which then is that optimal state of using fat, which then if we use fat, we lose weight, we feel better. Those are the results from it. So it's a 12-week program that actually takes you through all of the seasons, gives you nutritional information, behavioral psychology, how to understand your habits, how to understand your emotional relationship with food. And that's a very powerful program that a lot of our clients are actually transforming with. And in that program, there is a week where we actually introduce fasting, a very basic component of fasting. And you'll be able to implement those practices into your nutritional lifestyle. Right now, we have that program available for $300, which is 50% off its current price. Now, I want to make this point right here before we move on, is that if you are just trying to lose weight, if you're just trying to look better, then this program is not for you. This program is only for the people that really, really want to change their lifestyle, complete nutritional lifestyle. It's not a fad diet. It's not something that you just do and you're going to change. It's something that you implement into your life. You're changing your habits. You're changing your mindset. You're changing your relationship with food. So it's very, very important. Beverly sent the link out. If you want to learn more information, click that link. You'll be able to look at the overview, more details about the program. Again, it's 50% off.
So that's a great program for someone to kind of experience everything, like in terms of working your way up to fasting. But there is one thing that Moises and I will be working on in around February, which is going to be specifically for fasting, right? So you guys stay tuned for that. Me and Mo is going to start working on that. And that's going to be only just the fasting component for a little bit, people with a little bit more experience that have some knowledge about what to eat, what not to eat. That one is going to be designed by myself and Moises, and should be around somewhere
in February. In February, we're going to leave. So Beverly's also going to send a link where you can put in your information and actually learn more about fasting. And when the course is actually coming out, you'll receive emails from us. You'll receive information from us more about that fasting course as time goes on, as we get closer to February. And then the last one is the VidaProject community. Guys, I can't explain how powerful this community is. It's free, 100% free. You're going to get access to our coaches. Our coaches are on there. You can instant message them. You can talk to them if you have questions, if you want a consultation. It's all free. If you want to start transforming your life, this is the community for you. we also have a bunch of members that are part of this community. And why is that so important? Is because doing a transformation by yourself is very difficult. You know, I wouldn't have been able to transform my life from being the teacher to eating junk food and sugar and all of that stuff right now to doing something that is impacting people's lives in many different ways. It wouldn't have been possible without my team, without my clients, without the people around me, because it's like a big family. We're all here to support each other. We're all here to learn from each other. And the VidaProject community does that. And then the last thing is, again, the content. The content that the coaches are putting out, you're not going to get it anywhere else. You're not going to get it on Instagram. You're not going to get it on Facebook. You're going to get personalized content that directly applies to your life. So again, that community is free. Guys, join there. It's not going to hurt you. And that's it. So let's open the floor up for Q's and A's. If anybody wants to jump on, Beverly, if you got any questions that you feel are very powerful, can you let us know so we can answer them? Let me just look here real quick.
Yes, Donabelle had a very good question.
Okay.
She asked, does intermittent fasting over a prolonged period of time have the same effects, or does it have to be over a 24-hour fast?
Okay, Donabelle. Hi. So that's a great question. Like we said, with different individuals, it's going to be different in terms of hours, right? So if you're coming off eating habits or a diet that's mainly high glucose, then it would take much longer in terms of hours to hit some of the things like keto and autophagy. But as a beginner, even intermittent fasting has merit of benefits. You know, if you do a 16/8 or what's the other one? It's like a 10/12. Even just doing something like that still has a lot of benefits. And never forget, guys, when you're sleeping, you're technically fasting, right? So those hours do count. So if you sleep 6, 7, 8 hours a day, those hours count towards your fasting.
And it's something that's a little bit below intermittent fasting is time restricted feeding. Okay, so there's a little bit of a difference between time restricted feeding and intermittent fasting. Intermittent fasting, you're kind of starting to push the envelope a little bit. You're trying to hit that 18 to 24 hour mark. Okay, so you're pushing the envelope. If you are trying to begin a fasting practice in your lifestyle, then a time restricted feeding window is probably something that you want to go with, which is what Aman said, like a 12/8 or a 16/8, sorry, and then 18/4, something like that. But intermittent fasting starts to push the window. Now, there are different benefits for each. You have time restricted fasting, you have intermittent fasting, and then you have prolonged fasting. Prolonged fasting is anything above 36 hours. You want to go 36 to 120 hours, that's where you're going to experience that spiritual mindset aspect of it more so than the intermittent fasting or the time restricted feeding.
Another thing on that too is like you're saying, the mindset, but also autophagy. 36 hours. The further you go after 36, you're going to have more benefits with the autophagy, right? Because your body's only going to try to protect itself by getting rid of things that just aren't necessary or that it feels are weak.
Yeah.
Another thing down about real quick, I just want to mention is the idea of mixing things up, right? So today I'm going to be doing a 1 meal a day, and tomorrow I might do like a 16/8, or the following day do 1 meal a day again and do like an 18/4, or 18/6, 18/6, or 20/4. So I'm just going to be mixing those things up just to kind of keep my body guessing, And that's the relation that is when it comes to what is our design? Is food consistently available? Are we triggered by the timing of things, or are we kind of mixing things up where our body doesn't know when its next meal is going to come in?
Yeah. Next question. Let's see. What is an appropriate time frame to fast for a beginner faster, or does it depend?
Well, I would for that. So the question was, guys, what is an appropriate time frame for fasting for a beginner? I would say the way I started was I skipped 1 meal, and that was it. That's what I did, and that even just in that, depending on where you are, will be a huge difference. If you're eating 3-4 meals a day at the same exact time, just skipping one of those meals will make you,
Yeah, that's a great baby step to kind of start. I mean, you can also go and try to push the envelope, but if you do that, guys, I suggest that you plan your day and you're saying, hey, I'm not going to do absolutely anything today. I'm not going to think about work. I'm not going to think about anything. I'm just going to sit with my emotions and go through 18 hours, or I'm going to sit with my emotions and go through 24. It all depends on the individual. I think it's really kind of, and Christina, I think you can relate to this more so than anybody else because of your practice in the yoga therapy, is pushing that envelope, pushing that border, right? It should feel uncomfortable, but if you're a beginner, you don't want to go to that space where you're completely suffering too. You kind of want to be in that area where you're pushing that envelope, pushing that edge, as Christina would say in her yoga practice. When breaking the fast, does the quality of the meal have any impact? Ooh, that's a great question. Yeah, sure, absolutely. Again, we go back to ketosis, right? So you just went into a fast and you shot your body into ketosis. You went into hyperspeed to go from sugar to fats. So the quality of the meal after the fast is probably the most important thing. The first thing that you're going to digest is the most important thing. If you shoot your body with glucose, you just went back in the complete opposite direction. And that has tremendous negative impacts on, your insulin levels, your sugar levels, your pancreas, your liver. It's not gonna feel good, guys. So it's very important that you break your fast in like what we call in the Bite by Bite program is a spring meal. Is how would a human being eat during springtime, which tends to be more leafy greens, vegetables, and proteins and healthy fats.
Yeah, I agree with you 100%.
Let's see what other questions we had. We got time for about 2 more questions. Trying to go, we got a new message here. Thank you, everybody. Fasting. Boom, boom. Does anyone want to jump on and ask a question? You can jump on, turn your mic on if you want. I have high cholesterol. I'm a bit intimidated in taking high-fat food, beef/pork. How would fasting affect this condition?
Hey, Moises, thank you for the info. I do have a question.
Shoot.
When you do the fasting, does it matter if you do it once a month? Should you do it a couple of days in a row, like several sessions of fasting? Like if it's an 18-1, you eat and then you do another 18, or one is enough? Like, does it make a difference?
Yeah, that's a great question. So when we look at windows, right? When we look at windows of fasting and when we look at windows of eating, like you said, right? If you're doing an 18-hour fast, technically, if we look at it in a day, you would have 6 more hours to eat. But from my understanding, I think it's much more important when you're not eating. So you can mess around with something like you were saying, 18/1, and then start the 18 again, which is perfectly fine, because the more important part would be is the time you spend not eating, right? Even though you have that 6-hour window, extending the time that you're not eating would probably be beneficial. And that's actually great. 18/1, just me thinking about it, like, oh, okay, you literally do 1 meal a day, which is known as the OMAD, and boom, you're fasting, right? And if you were to eat at the same time the next day, well, technically you didn't do an 18, now you did a 24, right? So if you did an 18-hour fast from the night before and you ate at 6 p.m. and you started your fast again, and you ate at 6 p.m. the next day, now you would technically fasted for 24 hours.
So I also, I believe, you listen to coaches, you read information, and they're giving you structures. We also believe here at VidaProject in understanding your body, understanding how you feel, your emotions, and just going through an experience where you can put yourself in that state of discomfort for just a little bit. You can start to understand what works for you. And it's really about being patient with the process and really learning about how you react to food and to these fasting states. when you really build that awareness with your emotions during, when you're feeding yourself or when you're actually going through a fast, you're going to learn a lot more about you, because we're all different. We all have different DNA, different genes, different reactions to food. And it's about taking the time to really explore that. And fasting is one of the ways that you can do it. So there are structures and timelines that you can use and you can try out and experiment with, but also playing with the idea of just exploring how you react to something is also another way to do that, especially for beginners.
I really love that question, because now as I'm playing on my mind is that program that we're going to design in February.
Mm-hmm.
We should kind of structure that out and make sure that we're building people up, and giving them the right time frames and everything.
So that's what the program is going to be designed to do. The fasting course that's coming out in February is going to be a 30-day fasting course, which is going to give you a bunch of information, arm you with the knowledge and the tools to be able to get through a fast. And then we're going to slowly build you from a beginner to an advanced faster so that you can start to implement this into your life.
And then plus you and I fast every day technically, right? We do one meal, so we do 20-hour fast, either 18/6 or 16/8. That's usually for myself and Moses. We never really eat breakfast, right? We usually start to eat late sometime during the day.
Exactly. I want to answer this question. We'll take this last question, and then we'll start to end the masterclass. I have high cholesterol. I'm a bit intimidated of intaking high-fat food, beef/pork. How would fasting affect this condition?
So the data on cholesterol, there's a lot of information out there on cholesterol. From my understanding, the fear was during the 1950s, I believe, with a study by Ansel Keys, where he did a study on how many countries was that? I think it was like 15 or 16 countries, and then he took the data only from 3 or 4 countries, because it kind of it made sense to what he was trying to prove, that cholesterol was a biomarker for heart disease. Now the new studies that are coming out in the community of keto and carnivore, even with some of the doctors that follow that way of eating, they don't ever fear fat. They definitely don't fear meat. And the cholesterol the type of cholesterol that we raise from eating bacon or red meat or eggs is nowhere near to be concerned about than the type of cholesterol or the insulin that we raise from eating processed carbohydrates. That I feel like would more so be a biomarker for other health issues, as opposed to eating low carb, high fat diet that causes cholesterol imbalance.
So cholesterol in itself, I think people get a little confused between good cholesterol and bad cholesterol. It's not that cholesterol is good or bad. It's how your body is processing the actual cholesterol. What studies are actually showing now is when people have high fat and high sugar diets, meaning that the way that the modern Western society eats, that's what triggers a high bad cholesterol, the bad version, right? And it has to do with the actual cell. So when cholesterol gets put into the body, there are certain cells that carry that cholesterol. Now, depending on the size of the cell, which can hold a certain amount of cholesterol, is the problem. So when you have these bad cells that are carrying cholesterol, what they actually do is they bunch up and they cause high cholesterol. It's not the actual cholesterol or the cholesterol from the food. It's the combination of the glucose and the fats coming together that actually create that problem. So I believe, and studies are now showing, that sugar is the culprit behind bad cholesterol. So when it comes to fasting is actually going to start again to trigger autophagy, which will start to alleviate that problem. One, because you're taking all of the glucose out of your body while going through a fast. And two, you're starting to duplicate the more efficient cells that will be able to carry the cholesterol when you do give your body some cholesterol. So when it comes to that condition, I think fasting is actually a very good way of beginning the process to heal that. I think is being very aware about your sugar intake and your fat. If you think about all the best tasting food, chocolate, anything like fries, like the food that the modern American eats, it's a combination of sugars and fats. And that is the problem. So those rich tasting foods that we know aren't so good for us, that tends to be the issue when it comes to that.
I want to take away one more thing from this, because cholesterol it can get very confusing when you think about cholesterol, how certain cholesterol is raised. This is where I feel like the Bite program is so powerful, because, we can, in the media, you're gonna get something where they're saying, oh, take this oil and it will raise your good cholesterol, and this is just all marketing. It's not necessary you can take something and it's gonna help with X or Y or Z. It's the totality of everything, like Moises is saying, the combination of certain foods that come together. One example he gave was with the fat and the carbohydrates, right? They're two very powerful energy sources, and when you consume them together, it just takes a lot of energy and can cause a lot of inflammation. And I feel like that's something you have to worry about tenfold before we worry about our levels of cholesterol.
Yeah, again, I want to make this point again before we end the masterclass. Fasting is not for everyone, especially if you're just beginning the process of changing your nutrition. Fasting is one small part. That's why the Bite program is so powerful, because it's going to arm you with all the nutritional information that you need to really make a change. Fasting isn't the end-all be-all cure for your nutritional issues. Fasting is one component that can be implemented. I think it's very important to understand how the micronutrients and the macronutrients that come from food, how they affect your body. And the 90-day program that we have, the Bite program, does that perfectly, because we get you to understand all the different types of foods. We actually have you take action by you watching a video every day. We're going to give you what we call level ups. Those level ups you're going to introduce to your nutritional lifestyle on a weekly basis, and you're going to implement. You're going to communicate and talk with members. You're going to talk with coaches. You're going to start to understand your relationship with food. And the Bite program is what it does. So again, guys, that Bite program is 50% off today. You can purchase it. Beverly's going to send the link. It's $2.99. And if you really want to begin that process of changing your nutritional lifestyle, this is the program for you. If you're looking for a fat diet, thinking that fasting is going to be the end-all be-all cure, or you just want to lose weight because you made a goal for 2021, this is not the program for you. This program is intended for people who really want to change their health. They want to improve their health. They want to improve their relationship with food. And what happens is that the consequences of that intent, that decision, is weight loss, feeling better, looking better. And that program is available today. If you want to go and get the fasting course, remember that link that Beverly sent in will send you to our website, where you'll be able to put your information and be able to get information on when that course will be released. It will be released sometime in February. And then obviously the VidaProject community, guys, I cannot reiterate and really point out how powerful this can be for you. You're going to have a family of people who are trying to transform their lives, improve their health, improve their mindset, improve their fitness, their relationships. It's a school and a community to really transform your life. That is 100% free, and you'll have access to that once you join the community. So before we let you guys go, I'm going to stay around for 15 minutes. Aman, if you want to stay. Any questions that you guys have about anything that we do here at VidaProject? If you want to talk about fitness, workouts, nutrition, relationships, mindset, whatever it is, we're going to stay on for the next 10 to 15 minutes, and we'll be able to, talk to you one-on-one. But guys, thank you so much.
Thank you, guys. Thank you for joining us in this masterclass on fasting.
All right, and we appreciate your attendance. We'll look out the next month, February 6th, for our next masterclass. We'll send you the invites. Thank you again, guys. We appreciate you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have any questions, don't hesitate to ask.
Bye, everybody.
Hello.
Thank you.
Thank you.